Hello, everybody. It has been quite a while, and seeing that this is the first stream under my new name, having another talking video podcast with my buddy Phil. This
Hey
time we're
everyone.
talking about when the hype train gets a little out of control and ultimately kind of falls flat. So that's essentially what we're going to be talking about. Especially concerning how some of the games are going, with the whole pandemic situation, and not to mention, we did just had a couple of new consoles come out not too long ago. And of course, throughout the holiday season, people are gonna. Well, I guess I can't really say rushing to grab those because pre-orders are limited on both of them.
Oh yeah.
So it's whoever's lucky to get one.
hmm
Honestly, for me, I think it's just more incentive to wait for like another year or two before actually grabbing them. So,
Definitely.
you know,
I even though I'm interested in like the PS4 or PS5 now and
PS5, yeah.
things like that. Definitely going to wait another year until all the bugs are out of the systems. Until there's more games for the systems.
Mm-hmm.
And also especially hopefully, I'm hoping that by the time I actually buy one, they're gonna have a slim model because right now
Yeah.
those systems are huge.
Yeah. Although, seeing as that they are testing the waters with the digital only models, yeah, I wouldn't be too surprised if the slim models are going to be digital only.
Oh,
Which, you
true.
know what, at this point, I've long accepted it. I might just get a digital model just because it'd be more affordable. But yeah, I would say I definitely wait until there are new models, new upgraded models. The primary bugs are all fixed out, and there are some games that I'm looking forward to. So yeah, I mean, for me personally, I probably am waiting for like Final Fantasy 16 because it's
Oh yeah.
gonna be made by the same people who did 14, and I love 14.
hmm
So
Same. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, so
So very very exciting days of gaming in the months and years ahead.
yeah, but hey, I got plenty to keep me occupied for the time being. It's not like I'm starved for games or anything like that.
I'm still working through the Nintendo Switch backlog.
I'm just working through any backlog right now. All of the
hmm
backlogs of the platforms I have are crazy. It didn't help that, Humble Bundle, like in a couple of instances, had like those like 40 some game uh bundles.
hmm
And I was just like, well, I basically my Steam library is huge now, and I didn't spend a whole lot. But that kind of leaves the question of when am I going to be able to play any of these? It's like it took me like several months just to install them into an external hard drive too. So it's like, yeah,
Me and my sister got I think it's itch.io. Like they
yeah,
had a huge bundle of, I want to say it was like a couple, like hundreds of games, like for $5. It's basically like a bunch of their more indie games. Which it was an excellent sale. The problem was that there were so many games. We don't even know all the games that are in that bundle. We were scrolling through and we actually got tired of scrolling and reading through each one. Like, we'll have to come back to this. And we forgot to go back to it. So we still know everything that's in that huge catalog
oh
again.
yeah, good. Yeah, I was gonna say, good luck installing all of them too.
hmm
I mean, yeah, they're indie games, so a lot of them are probably smaller, but it's like you got a lot.
hmm At that size, it's definitely going to take, maybe, if we download all of them, at least 500 gigabytes at the very least.
Yeah, yeah.
Because there were quite a lot of them, and some of them were pretty, not huge file sizes, but enough to really put a dent in the hard drive there.
Of course, yeah, yeah. Definitely want external for that.
Mhm. In fact, that actually, um, there's been like, it's even in terms of like the hype train thing. There's a lot of sales even that kind of go into that hype train thing itself.
Yeah,
Both from Humble Bundle, and even like with this holiday season, like a lot of the sales that are coming up
Oh
with like Black
yeah,
Friday.
Black Friday is coming up. So,
Mm-hmm.
but of course, it's going to be a little harder to navigate those because with the pandemic, only so many people can physically go into the stores, and of course, that means a lot of people are probably going to be more focused on digital shopping.
Mm-hmm.
But of course, with so many people creating web traffic, it's like I could probably see a few card items not being able to be purchased,
Mm-hmm.
either because they're selling out so fast or because the web traffic's so high. It's like nothing's getting through, and of course,
Mm-hmm.
especially when you have to like pay via credit card, that gets a little tense.
Oh yeah, because like did you see the insane sales for some games at Walmart?
I have not. I think
They
I
have.
I think I was kind of looking at more like digital storefront and like sales per, like what each gaming company is doing per game.
Mhm. 'Cause there's some really good ones like what's it called? The Nintendo Switch first party games at Walmart are
Hmm.
$30.
Yeah, I'm not too surprised there.
Uh-huh. Like I don't know how any other company's gonna be able to compete with that because I think what games did I see? It was like Mario, Mario Aces, like some of the standard ones, but they had like Legend of Zelda, a link to the wait, is it Link to the Past? The Switch one. That's like the remake. Link's
No,
Awakening.
it's Link's Awakening.
Yeah, that one. That one. I think Mario Deluxe, even though that one's kind of now that they have Mario Maker, it's a little less
Yeah.
a little like once Mario Maker kind of added extra features, it's a little bit less for the other ones, but they have some really good. At least if you love first party games, they definitely are making that a pretty hype sale on its own right.
Yeah, but it just kind of leaves people, fighting a little bit more to get those games,
Mm-hmm.
which can make things pretty tricky.
Mm-hmm. And you have to hope that these sites don't, go down with so much traffic. You have to hope that they have this stock that's listed. 'Cause I know that's a lot of things with problems with like GameStop in places where they'll say, "Oh, we have 5 copies," but their system will be delayed, so really they only have like 2 copies by the time you make your purchase, or no copies by the time you actually
Yeah.
finalize everything. Yeah.
Yeah, but it isn't usually just sales that can get things a little tricky. Although with the console pre-orders, that did definitely put a damper on looking forward to getting the console if you are a day one buyer.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
They really botched that, like the launch
yeah,
of both
for
systems.
different reasons, because
Mm-hmm.
yeah, PlayStation 5 had like extra hoops to jump through just to get a pre-order.
Mm-hmm.
You're basically pre-ordering to pre-order.
Yep.
And
But
and the
mhm.
Xbox, the name.
Mhm. Oh.
The problem we all saw coming happened.
Yep.
Instead of people pre-ordering an Xbox Series X or an Xbox Series S, people
Mm-hmm.
were pre-ordering Xbox One X or an Xbox One S.
I almost feel like they did that intentionally, just so that they could have a boost in sales from parents that didn't know. They're like, "Hey, look, I got you the brand new Xbox One X. Wait, that's not the Series X." And the prices of them are still high, for the old generation.
Oh, actually, we got a comment I'd like to feature from my buddy Revolution.
Oh,
He also
excellent.
mentioned
Hi.
that Best Buy also had a really good deal on first-party Switch games, and that they're also
Oh,
$30 there.
excellent.
So yeah, if a couple other stores like Walmart and Best Buy are doing it, I wouldn't be surprised if GameStop, if Target, or even like
Oh, I'm
Amazon.
hoping Amazon. Oh, Amazon will be amazing there too, because they have a little bit more stock of things. But I've been I think that they are having some sales because I've been looking at a couple Switch games, and they keep number one, they have brought them down in like
Oh,
kind of like advanced. Oh, it has them at
GameStop has
40.
them at
Oh,
40.
of course, GameStop. They have to
Gotta
get
make
the
that. Gotta make
the
that
little
extra buck
extra. And then we try to sell them back, they'll give you $5 for that $40 game.
somehow. Or $15 store credit. Yeah, but kind of getting a little bit away from the sales and more into the actual games themselves. Like you mentioned before we started, like how Cyberpunk 2077 is kind of getting into some dangerous territory. Kind of because they kind of had a couple of delays. Not so much the delays themselves. They kind of were hinting at, they weren't going to have any more delays when, and then they ended up having more delays anyway, where it's like, they kind of set themselves up for disappointment there. It's like, okay, you have like a really big game everyone's looking forward to. You're all working remote because of a pandemic. Just admit that you probably are going to have a couple of extra delays and you'd be fine instead of creating extra trouble for yourself. And part of that extra trouble is, there are reports of the company putting workers under crunch.
Yep.
Which is, becoming more heavily criticized for good reason. Although, to be fair, the reason why the call out to the crunch was happening to begin with was apparently someone who was like working with Rockstar was pointing it out, and it's like, of all the places that shouldn't be judging for crunching, it's Rockstar.
Yeah.
Rockstar's really Rockstar. It's like they're trying to throw another company under the bus when it's like they aren't exactly a shining example against crunch culture either. It's the whole Epic Games versus Apple again. It's just
because especially with they just released the game, was it last year that they made Red Dead 2?
Yeah,
was it last year or the year before?
I think it was last year.
Yeah, like that had a huge amount of crunch. And then on top of that, they had to crunch also for the online components.
So yeah, it's one of those things where it's like a lot of people, getting these games, are starting to get a little wary because, not only is it a very, bad practice, to essentially fund with your purchase, but at the same time, it's like, if they have to resort to crunch in the first place, it kind of brings questions into, okay, well, as far as scheduling, what are they prioritizing? Are there any shortcuts being taken? Or even something as simple is everyone just too tired to like, double check, triple check, quadruple check, any sort of potential bugs or issues with the game? Because, the longer you work, the less likely you're going to notice certain details because you're trying to just keep yourself awake.
I wonder if
oh boy, I can't wait to see how Cyberpunk runs on the base model Xbox One.
I will be the test for that because I have the base model.
Oh, you have. Well, I have the base model PS4. Cyberpunk isn't really up there on my list to get games, but I guess if we want to be curious on see how it runs on base models PS4 and Xbox One, I guess that'd be more of an incentive to get it.
We're gonna see like polygons like the original PS1 on my system.
And those port consoles are just gonna roar like nothing else.
I guess with Cyberpunk 2077, I was thinking that I guess so it's been delayed. Was it 3 times? I remember it was supposed to be like really early this year, and it's been pushed back multiple times. I wonder if any of that had to do with it's a comment there. Oh, just the performance, yeah. I can imagine it really chugging along.
Well, I'm pretty sure we'll see, demo videos of performances between platforms. So,
especially with Digital Foundry, I'm hoping that they show like a cut of like, here's how it runs on this one, frames per second. Here's how it does on Xbox One X. Here's how it does on Series X or
Okay.
Series S.
Okay, but just getting back to where you were before, Phil.
Yeah, so with the I guess with the multiple delays, I wonder if it had to do with the kind of like the showing that happened with previous games that were kind of rushed in development. And what I mean is with like, for example, Halo Infinite, it had such a backlash on the graphics of it.
Mm-hmm.
And then right around, that was kind of before a lot of these games started having like a domino effect of delays. I wonder if it has to do with that a little bit, where they just want to make sure it's polished, almost overly polished
Mm-hmm.
when it comes out, since they only do have, you know, one previous game, which being The Witcher 3 as their like main property, or I guess main success story. Um,
Okay, yeah,
it,
well, the Witcher franchise in general, yeah.
right. Oh, sorry. Yeah, the Witcher franchise in general, but I guess specifically, Witcher 3 was like their big multi-platform. I guess
Their breakout game.
right. Because this would be in theory their if this is really successful, their second um, you know, huge
Yeah,
game.
yeah, and they really want to get it right. Yeah,
Mhm,
I totally get it.
mhm,
Because another example of when the hype train can often falter is when a game enters development hell.
mhm,
Probably the biggest example of that is Duke Nukem Forever, where
mhm,
it went like such a long development hell, and they initially got hype for it, hype died down, and then the next time they showed a trailer, hype got back up for it again.
mhm,
But because it like changed so many hands and whatnot, the game just ended up being terrible.
mhm. And did you see the early screenshots of like the of Duke Nukem Forever? Like their like I guess it wasn't finished, but it was like their here's where we are showing
Hmm.
of it. It was really good. Like it looked like back to the like kind of like the Duke Nukem of old. It was
Hmm.
kind of closer to that. Um, but like you said, the more that the hype train with that game continued, they thought, oh, we have to keep, we
Hmm.
can't just go with this old model that we have. We have to kind of enhance it, add new graphics. Oh, let's make Duke do this and do this. And it ended up being a mess because it sure kind of stuck to like the Duke Nukem character, kind of, the tough macho guy persona, but then they just went way over the edge with it, just trying to make it, you know,
Hmm.
to fulfill what everyone thought Duke Nukem would be in the new century.
Yeah, because I think the problem was because the hardware changed so many times,
Mm-hmm,
the developers behind it changed so many times,
mm-hmm,
and at that point, like people also kind of moved on too. So it's
mm-hmm,
like by the time the game actually came out, like only the people that really wanted to give the game a go actually gave the game a go, and when they played the game, it was not a good experience.
yeah, I almost want to play that game just to see how bad it was because it looks bad. It looks really, really bad.
Yeah.
But just to see the train wreck of it, because actually that reminded me of another game, but
Mhm.
I'll probably mention that after the Duke one there.
Yeah. Well,
But
yeah, it's bad when the random whiteboard that you could doodle around with is the best part of the game. And you like
mm.
approach that like in the first few minutes.
That's where the good ideas stop. As soon as they got to
Yeah.
the whiteboard, they're like, "Oh, well, that's about the end of it." There.
That's our game. But yeah,
And-
I mean,
oh,
Final Fantasy 15 was pretty close to, experiencing that sort of problem too. And yeah, the story kind of collapsed a little bit, but at least the actual game was good.
yeah, the game was pretty
The game
solid.
was, yeah, like gameplay, visuals, sound, everything was checking out well, but it's like the story had a lot of holes in it, and they were trying to patch it up through like multiple seasons of DLC, which they couldn't even finish because the director wanted to move on in the middle of the second season pass. So, whoops.
And that actually, to me, is a. Yeah, I'm really glad you mentioned that part too, because storylines seem to be a common theme in games that are overly hyped, where that tends to be the part that can either completely falls apart to the point where it really ruins these games, or it's just inconclusive to where we have to wait a long time for the story to kind of build because they're so focused, in theory, focused on the gameplay. And I guess
Kingdom
another theory
Hearts.
would be like there's too many hands into it trying to, trying to actually make the story happen. Because that, like, the other game I was going to mention, like, along with these two games, would be Anthem. Had a huge amount of hype, and that game kind of derailed, especially in terms of its story, where the story is almost non-existent because people were so focused on what the game would play like, the Iron Man simulator in a sense, and then it almost was like because of that they had to, I guess, kind of focus more on that and less on actual story and less on actual like mission design.
And because EA likes to rush the heck out of their developers, especially BioWare, as of late, the gameplay wasn't much to speak of either.
See, I actually liked Anthem
on launch.
On launch, definitely on launch.
On launch.
See, I did not play it on launch. I played it way after launch, but I really like that game for what it is.
Yeah.
I'll preface it with that because I know it's very, very average.
Yes.
But being able to fly around in that game, the looter shooter aspects of it, even though the loot's horrible. But just in terms of like for what Anthem is, and I don't even really like, because my friends don't have the game, I don't really like, I don't have like a group like a lot of people have to play that. I play solo. But even then, or like, with the people kind of matchmaking puts you with, it is a very fun experience. There's an element of fun that's in there, so like a nugget of fun that's in there. You just really have to chip away to find it.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to do with Mass Effect Andromeda, and it's at some point I just kind of gave up on it. Because it's like, for as much as like I'll still defend, how the original trilogy ended, even though it could have been much better. At least they tried to fix it, and at least the third game was good all around up until that point. But it's like, with stuff like Mass Effect Andromeda and Anthem, they're games that were janky on release, and it's like you kind of had to stick with it in order to enjoy it, which was a massive bummer. And I'm hoping BioWare gets themselves a little bit out of this rut, especially since they went and announced a remastered Mass Effect trilogy for the later consoles. So not only for PS4 and Xbox One and PC, but also the newer consoles that are coming out with an upgrade option. So it's like, oh man, BioWare, you're in a rough spot now, but I'm hoping you pull this off.
See, I don't think they can mess up this one since the games are already made.
You say that. But I'm pretty sure EA will find a way. Especially because, I recently got the Mass Effect trilogy on my PC, via Origin. And for whatever reason, I can only get the first game up and going. The two and three, they start off with like having no sound, but then, when I eventually updated my computer and reinstalled everything onto my external hard drive, they didn't even want to open it at all anymore.
Wow.
So it's like, that's kind of another reason why I'm hoping this remaster works out. Because, even though they added 2 and 3 back on Steam, it's like not all the DLC is there either, which is like the dumbest thing.
Yeah.
So it's like, I honestly do not know what EA is thinking. I mean, that's the obvious question, for the longest time, but it's like, I really don't know what they're thinking. And it sucks that, something that I ended up liking as of recently is being handled by them.
Yeah, that's
Because it's like if it wasn't for Mass Effect,
Mhm.
I probably wouldn't have any reason to care about what they're doing.
Mhm. Yeah, EA is the weirdest company, I guess, in terms of that, and also I guess like you mentioned with that trilogy, they're going to be making their own hype for that one too. I mean, I guess both from the fans, but also like whatever they say is going into that game is going to generate the amount of hype. So if they say it's going to have the best visuals ever, or not ever, but like of the series so
Of the
far,
series, yeah.
yeah, then they definitely have to deliver on that. It can't look like
Yeah.
the Xbox One versions or even hopefully not the PS3 version. You never know if they just don't care.
I think you mean the 360 because that's what
Mhm.
the games were originally on. Xbox 360 and PC.
Oh no, PS3.
Well, no, PS3 was later.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah,
Yeah, 'cause I know
PS3 was
I bought
ported
it on the
later.
PS3.
Yeah, I got it on the PS3.
Mhm.
It's just that
Later in the
that came
yeah.
later.
Mhm.
But yeah, and it's like they say that a veteran team's working on it, but it's like, that doesn't mean anything if the delivery was botched.
Mhm.
Because the publishers could still rush the developers. They could still do strict deadlines and stupid amounts of crunch.
Mhm.
It doesn't matter if they're veteran developers. Because it's like, especially after Sonic Forces, where they kind of had the whole from the people that made Sonic Colors and Sonic Generations. It's like they had us thinking that Sonic Forces was gonna be a good 3D Sonic game, and it ended up being like a very painfully average game. It's like, yeah, veteran developers. You could say that all you want, but until I actually see the game being good, that don't mean jack.
Mhm. Or you also have to hope they brought back the right developers versus the the ones that were kind of messing up a otherwise good game.
Well, yeah, because with Sonic Forces, it actually was kind of discovered that they were actually working with like a skeleton crew as opposed to the
Mhm.
people that, actually worked on Colors and Generations.
Right.
So it's like, man, Sega was kind of caught being a little dishonest there.
Mhm. Because they could always say like from developers who worked on you know Mass Effect or that worked on Sonic, like any of the games there, but it could always just be like an art, like couple art direct, not art directs, but like a couple developers that worked on shading on something, or
Yeah.
it doesn't mean that they're the key people that were making it.
Yeah, because that's actually a thing that happened with Sonic Boom Rise of Lyric. People were
Mhm.
going on about how, it was a brand new company founded by former Naughty Dog employees.
Mhm.
And, people were thinking, right, so there's people that, that might know what they're doing. And then it's just like, game ended up being a completely broken mess.
Mhm. Well, don't forget that what was that game? Mighty Number Nine was made by the former I guess creator of Mega Man.
Co-creator of Mega Man.
Mhm. But that game ended up
AJ
being
Inafune.
horrible.
Yeah, well, yeah, especially because there was a lot of mismanagement involved.
Mhm.
Um, they were publishing it to way too many platforms.
Mhm.
They were getting investors and not really properly updating it via Kickstarter because it's like they raised 4 million via Kickstarter. People like to know where that money's going.
Mhm.
But and then they started to do Kickstarters for like an animated series as well as another game.
Mhm.
Cashing in on the Mega Man Legends 3 hype, and it was just like it's like one of those things where it's like they try to build up like so much, especially with all the stretch goals that they met no problem, and it's just they couldn't.
Mhm.
They found out that they couldn't, and when the final deadline came, it's just a painfully average game at best and an incredibly broken mess at worst.
Mhm.
Yeah, and it basically basically kind of killed off the spiritual successor to Mega Man before it started. But hey, at least we got Mega Man 11 now, so
Uh-huh. Very true. And
I mean,
hopefully some more in the future. Soon.
hopefully, so yeah,
Mhm.
definitely, or at least more collections to kind of continue, kind of keep the support going until whatever new game that they are planning on making next.
Mhm. That actually brings up a question I have for you too, involving the hype train too, because that I guess had so much hype for it because of the name of the person kind of attached to it, the co-developer of Mega Man.
Yeah,
Um,
and the fact that there wasn't a Mega Man game in like the longest time
right.
when that was being pitched.
Mhm. So I guess what do you think about games like I guess Metal Gear Solid, and I guess along with that, like Death Stranding, in terms of their hype
Mhm.
being under. Why do I keep forgetting his name?
Hideo Kojima.
Yes, Hideo Kojima. Well, like, what do you think about? I guess like in terms of like hype being generated not because of the game itself,
But of the
if you haven't
person
seen it
making it.
yet, but just from the name of the person making it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because I think Bloodstain Ritual of the Night was
Mhm.
also the one where it's like it was being hyped because the person making it was the originator of the whole Metroidvania style. Well,
Mhm.
the Vania part in Metroidvania.
Right.
Uh,
Mhm.
so and then of course there was also Ukulele
Mhm.
being made by former Rare employees, and then
Mhm.
there was also Shovel Knight being made by a studio with former Way Forward employees.
Mhm.
So yeah, it's one of those things where um, sometimes a lot of the hype is because of recognizable developers behind certain projects, and that can often be a mixed bag. Because in one hand, yes, you do have Shovel Knight, where you have people that grew up with the same same kind of games that a lot of people had during the NES days, and can make not only a game faithful to that, but also kind of make a modernized take on it so that it
Mhm.
doesn't come with as many of those trappings.
Mhm.
Um, like stupid amounts of knockback, lives, and like crushing difficulty. Just because a game can have that uh 8-bit aesthetic and kind of the kind of similar gameplay styles that a lot of those games had,
Mhm.
doesn't mean it needs to be stupid hard.
Right. Mhm.
Oh, I love what Reese said. We don't talk about Mighty Number Nine. Kind of a little too late on that. Not only did, I'm pretty sure a lot of people on the internet have already done that long before us. So
Mhm.
yeah,
Oh, I guess we have to bury
we're,
it
we're
back
not
where it came
we're
from.
not operating under Fight Club rules here.
But
Uh,
I guess along with the hype train though too, because I guess if you take the concept of like a Death Stranding
yeah.
without Hideo Kojima's name to it, do you think it like? Because I almost think like his name could have been a positive for that game because I don't think anyone would have paid attention to that game at all if anyone else was making it at the time.
Yeah, really. I think if it wasn't a Hideo Kojima game, it wouldn't have marketed itself as well as it did because, I mean, to be perfectly honest, people had a hard time grasping the game even with Hideo Kojima. Like,
Mm-hmm.
every time everybody saw Death Stranding, we were just kind of looking like, what the heck is that?
Because
What is
it's been out for a while. I haven't played it yet, but just by watching it and hearing like the gameplay aspects of it, like if not for like his styling being added to it, I don't know how well that would. It's just you're kind of walking across landscapes.
yeah. It's like, yeah, you're a delivery person, you have a
Uh-huh.
baby strapped to you.
Hmm.
It's like,
It's
what's
kind of
going on
wild.
here? I know it's like it.
Like
I have nothing to describe that, even
Mhm.
after all this time. I mean, I hope the game did well so that they could make more games, but it's like
Mhm.
I still have no idea what that is.
Because I almost like the conceptually to me that sounds more like I'm taking away like not the graphics of it, not the fighting front, but just the overall initial gameplay. Seems like something you would get from like an indie game in terms of like your job is to walk across landscapes and don't not to fall over, not to drop packages, to get from point A to point B. That completely sounds like, and like to use ladders and things that other players might leave behind. That sounds like a really like like indie game, like an indie game, but like one that only fits like a certain niche of like people that would
Yeah,
really like gravitate to it. But then once his name's added to it, everyone hyped it up as being like,
yeah,
"Oh, this is
and
Metal Gear
the
again."
budget just like
Yep.
went up like crazy.
Because
Yeah,
it was nominated for Game of the Year, I think. Wasn't it from the 2019? I think it was in that game. Like it wasn't Game of the Year, but it was like I thought it was nominated in the
yeah, but
top.
that's because Jeff Kingsley was such a fanboy of Kojima.
Yeah, but no, that's what I mean. Like, would it even be up there if not for Hideo Kojima being attached to it?
I don't know. I don't know.
Mhm.
But yeah, and while we're kind of on the subject of like try, not so much game, not so much game being hyped up by by like name recognition, but more so a game that you would think be like more like a smaller budget title or an indie game, but then because the idea got so popular, the kind of the hype levels and the maybe even the kind of the expectation behind it grew to the point where it's like you kind of wonder if you wonder if it's ever gonna like be anywhere near that it was hyped up to be, would be No Man's Sky.
Mhm.
Because yeah, if we want a really, if we really want a modern day, like the closest modern day example to how hype could fail a game so hard, it would be that one.
Mhm.
I mean, nowadays, I'm hearing like rather good things about it, but at launch, it was a whole nother story.
Mhm.
Especially because part of the reason why it's appearing good now is because a lot of the developers stuck with it and tried to make the game as was initially promised to be. Which good on them, but at the same time, it's like if you have a spokesperson who's offering all of these things live on camera during interviews, you really should already be working on getting those into the game and working
Mhm.
instead of
Someone should have reined him in.
someone should have reined Sean Murray in, because
Mhm.
it's like I almost kind of had to wonder if he knew that there was no way that was going to be in
See,
by their initial deadline.
because I was watching the Angry Joe video on him just because I already knew what the game was like, but I like watching his review on it. Mostly because I like when he was kind of doing the comparison of what Sean Murray was saying about the game
Yeah,
and then what was actually in the game, and he would show like a comparison of it. Um, but it's almost like since he was the spokesperson of the company, maybe he might have got information maybe from like I guess the higher up meetings about like, hey, let's brainstorm, let's see what could be in the game. And he just took that information and thought, okay, we talked about it, it's going to be in the game, versus the like the ground floor of people actually developing it, where they're like, wait, we
yeah,
can't actually do this part yet. Because if you really think about it, like the concept of the game and what they kind of achieved of the like multiple generated worlds you can visit, but each one being a little bit different and being able to name them. All of that does seem like you could really like if they can like do that successfully, it's almost like, well, yeah, sure, they could bring in, you know, different species and being able to fly around the name. You know, like it seems like they should be able to do anything since they kind of tackled that huge aspect of the infinite number of worlds part, you know?
Mhm.
So it's almost like that could have been hype within their own studio. Like, yeah, we could do all this, and yeah, let's announce it to the world. And then the people actually coding are like, wait a minute, no, we haven't gotten there yet.
Yeah,
You know?
it's like, wait. And I think once that stuff started getting announced, the first couple of times the damage was already done
Mm-hmm.
because they basically, um, because yeah, if it was revealed during the interviews that oh wait, we don't actually have this in,
Mm-hmm.
then hype would have immediately fall flat and no one would even get the game. So I
Mm-hmm.
bet they still had a bank on people getting the game, and then hopefully that stuff can be added in later,
Right.
which it did, but it caused a lot of damage to the studio's reputation,
Mhm.
all
And
because one guy got trigger happy.
mhm. And one thing too is that internally they did kind of mess up themselves when they showed the like one of the reveal trailers that had all of this stuff going into the game that wasn't part of the initial launch.
Hmm.
And that like I can't really blame the spokesperson for that because if he sees that video, he's like, "Oh, sure, stuff's flying around and there's space battles and things." Because in the actual video, it's showing all that stuff. So if that's what they showed him, then he's going to take that and go like on Stephen Colbert's show, like because I know he did like the late night things,
Hmm.
and say like, "Oh, yeah, that's in the game." Because in the version I saw, the little demo, yeah, that stuff was happening. But then when you scale it to the infinite number of worlds, like, wait, this is too much to incorporate across, even on their server, and probably too much to incorporate. So they kind of
Hmm.
probably tail it down a little bit. But yeah, I whoever made that initial trailer showing like space worms flying over and space battles, it's kind of on them, kind of like with the Anthem thing. It's like, wait, some of the stuff that's being shown isn't in the actual game, but yeah, I could kind of see why he would kind of hype it up in that sort of way.
Yeah. And sometimes, it isn't even like, the company that's doing all the hyping. Sometimes the fans can get themselves all too hyped up. And then by the time that the company, has the announcement to show,
Mhm.
you know, it's very easy to feel disappointed because you're thinking that it's going to have like this thing or this thing.
Mhm.
And then it doesn't end up happening. And granted, it is like going into a whole nother different topic that we could easily talk about, later. But given um how easy like leaks and rumors, well, supposed leaks and rumors can feed into like the hype train,
Mhm.
I'd say that's also another factor that can easily kind of ruin any sort of proper anticipation for a game. I every time when a company is set to announce something or to set a series of announcements during like say a Nintendo Direct or a specific game show presentation like E3 or the Tokyo Game Show,
Mhm.
um and people rely on those rumors for too long, and then when the thing is actually shown it ends up being something different
Mhm.
than what they're expecting, and then all of a sudden people get so riled up and it's like, guys, you were following an unconfirmed rumor
Mhm.
or a leak that hasn't been proven by anyone from within the company.
Mhm.
Why are you guys getting so upset? Why don't you just wait until the actual company has news to share
Mhm.
at that point?
I could give a huge example of that too. Um, the hype surrounding the next Smash Brothers characters, like each one that comes up.
That's a big one.
Yep, because I remember how many people were let down at the announcement of Steve when everyone was thinking that was going to be Gino. And the reason people thought it was Gino was like rumors from GameStop.
Mhm.
Well, I think it was GameStop, kind of multiple outlets where they said GameStop had to remove certain things, I guess, that were kind of, how did that one go? It was either like they had to remove something that like related to Gino, or they put something up related to Gino. I remember that they were the first one to do it. Then
Mhm.
what was it? Nintendo took down music from the Super, like the Mario RPG. They like did more copyright strikes on that, so people thought it was going to be put in the Smash Brothers. And then the stickers, even like the sticker part of it, they did something related to that in Smash Brothers, which made everyone think, oh, Gino's going to be in because they did this thing for Super Mario RPG. So
Yeah.
um, I was
But
kind of part of that hype though, because I'm in like in the Smash Brothers group I'm in.
mhm,
We were all trying to guess who it was. It was either going to be Gino, or there was a lot of rumors about Crash Bandicoot also
mhm.
because of his new game. So both of those were extremely hyped, and everyone was let. Well, I don't say everybody was let down at Steve in Minecraft, like the kind of group of characters, because I know a lot of kids love that.
Mhm.
But at the same time, it kind of let everyone that was hyping up other characters down, like Dante and
That's
you know.
usually the kind of cycle with stuff like Smash Brother characters, or even Nintendo Directs, because
Mhm,
a similar thing would happen where you know when there hasn't been a direct in a while, people be like trying to hype up, oh, this is when the next Nintendo Direct could happen, and it's going to
mhm,
feature these sorts of games, the kind of wish list games that everybody wants.
mhm,
Plus, like with a few like safe picks or even just random out there, just to kind of seem believable.
mhm,
Um, and then the time will pass, and either the direct doesn't happen or the direct does happen, but it doesn't show like as much as what people predicted, and then people
mhm,
get all hiffy about that. It's like, if you just wait for them to actually show the thing, you know you wouldn't be as upset.
mhm. I
It's
have
like,
the
stop believing people that have a pretty poor track record of calling stuff on the internet, please.
mhm. I watch a lot of YouTubers that kind of I kind of watch some of those rumor videos, even though I don't, other than the Smash Brothers stuff, which I kind of fell for. I don't believe the other game announcements that they mentioned.
Hmm.
Like Spawn Wave and RGT 85 are like two that I follow a lot.
Hmm.
Both for their like kind of their news, and also for like their teardowns of video game consoles and like the ins and outs of that. But they hyped up each Nintendo Direct so much that every time they had an episode, they would say Nintendo Direct coming up, and so you'd watch it to see like, hey, do they know the date? And they would guess so many times that they guess like, like the saying, like a broken clock is always right. Was
Yeah,
it? It's
broken clock is
always
always right twice a day.
twice a day. Yeah, it was like they announced a new Nintendo Direct so many times that they got it right, but only because they guessed like 15 times.
Yeah, it's like, if you keep throwing darts at the dartboard, eventually you'll hit the bullseye. Law of
Mhm.
averages, you
And
know?
the funniest thing along with all that hype, and not from them as YouTubers, but just from people in general, is that they when Nintendo announced a mini direct, like you remember the partner showcase, I guess that announced like what was the games, the
Yeah.
WWE Battlegrounds, and it was kind of like the one of the weaker showcases. They had like that one,
Yeah, because they had
Road
a couple of
Warrior,
those. They had
Road
a
something. Mhm,
they had a couple of those short showcases
mhm,
throughout the year, because they kind of had to do more splitting up their directs and making them kind of smaller.
mhm. But
One of them
I had,
was where
oh,
were the Hyrule Warriors.
mhm.
The Breath of
Oh,
the Wild one was shown. Yeah.
mhm. This was before that one though, because this one I think the big announcement was the remake of Shin Megami Tensei.
Shin
It
Megami
was,
Tensei 3 Nocturne was getting an
mhm.
HD remaster, and they
Yes,
also had an announcement for 5.
yes, that was the one, because in that package of games, like the announcements of it, I was looking through the YouTube comments and I had to comment on one, because one of them said, "I'm really upset because." Metroid Prime 4 wasn't announced. And
But
I had to comment and say, like you thought that they were going to announce Metroid Prime 4 on the Nintendo Mini Direct. That's a
featuring third
partner
parties.
showcase.
Yeah, featuring third parties.
Right. Like that was because like a lot of people were commenting on that. Like, yeah, I was hoping that Nintendo was going to show something. And I gotta say, like, that's when the hype train doesn't even make sense
Yeah,
because it's like they didn't read the title of
it's like
what they're watching.
When they made the announcement, they made it clear that it was a partner showcase. Like,
Mhm.
hey, these are all the games coming from our development partners, aka not first party games from Nintendo.
Yeah. And I almost think nowadays they drop those Nintendo Directs randomly. Well, kind of randomly. They kind of give like
They shadow drop them. They either shadow drop them or like they drop them the next day to kind of minimize, rumors and stuff. Because I'm pretty sure the people over at Nintendo are getting tired of that stuff. I'm pretty sure like a lot of companies are getting kind of tired where it's like, when something gets announced like a little bit ahead of time and leaves like a bit of a buffer, and then YouTubers and any sort of influencers, they make all sorts of rumors, and then of course those rumors gain enough traction to where official publications report on these rumors. They obviously let everybody know that it's a rumor, of course. They kind of have to. They'd be legally in trouble if they didn't. But they're still reporting on them. And then it's like by the time the actual announcement comes in, it's like, oh wait, I thought this was going to happen. It's like you believe something that some random person on the internet said, not like anything from an official source. And if it was from an official source, that person who probably leaked it is going to be facing some legal issues,
right?
Via lawsuit or jail time.
Unless it's like the CEO of the team that's making that, or like the lead developer or something, like
or like a producer or director. Yeah, but yeah,
right.
They would not reveal something like that and before their set announcement date.
Unless they're a very disgruntled employee, like the one from The Last of Us 2, who leaked the what happened to Joel.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I leaked a lot of the story cutscenes.
Because that created hype in the opposite way, where people were so mad at what happened.
It was creating anti-hype. It didn't help that Naughty Dog was also caught crunching their workers at around that time too. So it's like, unpopular story developments as well as undeveloped, unpopular practices, which probably was what led to the disgruntled employee, just leaking all that crap. Although they probably don't have their job anymore after doing all that.
Probably not, and it might be tough to find a similar role.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's gonna be tough to find any sort of work. It's like when you break NDA and confidentiality agreements like that. Yeah, things aren't gonna be going so well for you.
Especially that big of a leak.
Yeah.
Because who knows how well that game could have been received if that wasn't leaked so far in advance with no context. Now, I didn't play the game, so I don't know.
I was going to say, seeing the kind of unpopular reactions that came of those cutscenes, chances are it probably would have gotten the same reception anyway. It's just, at that point, people have already bought it.
Right.
They already bought it, and there isn't really much that they could do about it other than complain on the internet. Here, it's like they were able to complain on the internet before buying the game, which I know some people do that, even when the game comes out normally. But it's like they were able to do that like guilt-free in a way. Or well, I say guilt-free, but of course some people like to take things too far and make a real nasty ruckus. Or even go so far as to harass voice actors, which it's like,
Yeah,
I don't want to use the whole go outside thing, especially since we're in a pandemic and you're not really supposed to go outside, but maybe that should be a sign that you should, maybe change your routine a bit, do some different things, like maybe do some chores around the house, get some cleaning done, maybe do some home exercises.
I would say temporarily play a different game instead of go online.
It's like, do something different, please. You're kind of not making yourself look good.
I just thought of something too, I guess related to the hype in general. Do you think some companies, kind of like in Hello Games, might create the hype knowing that they can't fulfill it, mostly to sell the games for them? Like, for example, like with the No Man's Sky game, even though like Sean Murray knew like, oh, this might not be in the game, but being an indie game, they might have said like, hey, if we hype this up to be the best game ever created, would this boost our sales to the point where even though people will be mad, we'll make so much money from that initial sale that even with the negative reception, we'll be able to make other games in the future with that?
I mean, I could totally see that happening. It could, for all we know, it could even be the oldest trick in the book ever since, the whole Bubsy 3D Gold X Award days. Or, the whole, Daikatana fiasco.
But John Romero makes great games.
Used to make great
gonna
games.
Be the best game of all time.
Used to make great games. Then he made Daikatana. Now nobody wants him to make games anymore.
So,
but yeah, I totally see that happening. I think sports games have been pretty guilty of that, where it's like they could easily drum up hype, and then it's like they don't have to deliver anything outside of a roster update.
Every
slightly better graphics, slightly better than, maybe make things slightly more realistic. But then aside from that, yeah, it's just like here's the next roster update.
That reminds me of an example of a hype, like I guess not even really a hype train, almost like an online mob kind of attacking a game without knowing the full context of it. And I'm going to say this as a huge fan of NBA games, so that might discredit me, but so initially when like I think it was NBA 2K20 came out, and everyone thought, oh, it's a like a casino with it because they click on machines.
It's gacha.
Yep.
Like the mobile games.
Yes and no. Yes, and I guess like because yes, it does have some mechanics like that in terms of the cards. If you play the card mode, because I don't really play that one too much. I do some like on the 3-on-3 online mode, but a lot of it isn't really. So you can't pay for those parts. So a lot of people thought like, oh, we're mad about this because it's not only loot boxes, but it's loot boxes that you have to, you pay for. Then you have to like drop a coin down a little conveyor thing and get into a bin to get a card pack type of thing. And that hype really continued on to the release of that game. But then playing it, and maybe it's different on the like the Xbox One, PS4, but I have the Switch version. And when you play the little Plinko machine one, it's for like after you win a match, it's for a free reward. So it's like something basically like they're giving you anyway for that, but it doesn't like it can affect gameplay, I guess, if like you. Well, I guess the thing is like you can't buy that part. So what they could have if they wanted to monetize that and say like, this is an aspect of the game you pay for each chip, then I would be extremely mad as a
person that plays this game a lot. But like in terms of it being like, oh, you won a match and you get a little drop of a ball thing, or you lose a match, and I think you still actually get a drop even if you lose a match.
Mhm.
Um, it's not as pay to win as people were hyping it to be, and like going online to make reviews about it, being like, oh, it's a casino game now, where really it's not as much.
Yeah, gambling game. Yeah.
Right, like it's not really as much in the actual gameplay of it. Now you can always, buy packs and things if you want, if you really play it that way. I've never paid like a penny other than the price of the game. And even then I only bought it for like $5 because it was on sale on the Switch store of the eShop. So that's one where like I was watching this hype train, but knowing the game itself, I was like, wait a minute, that's not really what's going on in the actual gameplay of it. And the people that were talking about it were people that didn't play it, they watched the video
Hmm.
of the person. Like someone, it was like a kid sitting on his couch, like, all right, I got the new car pack. And he was showing like the dropping of the thing, not knowing that that's more of like the like you won a match, here's your free bonus, and then it helps you pick what bonus you get.
Yeah.
But you can't pay
Um,
for that aspect of it. So it's like that's just more of like how they distribute their rewards. Because you can still angle it and get it into what hole you want. Because I'm pretty good at those type of games, so I always get the card pack ones.
mhm.
So it's more of like a fun way for them to distribute the rewards versus like, oh, I'm pulling a slot machine and I'm getting this because you have to win the match to do it. You know?
Yeah. And I think I think as well as like an anti-hype train, so to speak.
Mhm.
Pokemon Sword and Shield also kind of had, that sort of thing going against it because uh Game Freak kind of got themselves into a little bit of a hole because they initially promised like future proofing all of their Pokemon models and stuff, so it would make the console transition smoother.
Mhm.
But for all we know, something could have happened behind the scenes where that didn't really work out as well, so they had to do everything from scratch.
Mhm.
And that's probably what led into the eventual reveal that, not every Pokemon from the Pokedex was going to make it.
Mhm.
And that's what people got really fired up
Mhm.
about. And I think the other reason that they kind of had to fish out a little bit was to make, to have like higher quality animations. But then it was also revealed that a lot of the animations were like shortcuts, stuff from prior games.
Mhm.
But it's like I, after playing, Sword and Shield, I could definitely see where a lot of the extra work was starting to go into, with the higher quality animation bit and all.
Mhm.
But because the Pokemon Company was setting a hard deadline, so that because it's not just the game, it's all the merchandising and anime stuff that begins when those games come out.
Mhm.
A lot of stuff had to be cut back and kind of shortcutted in order for the games to be ready on release day, which really stinks because it's like when you have a company that honestly is one of the highest making franchises like in the world,
Mhm.
and yet they're still pushing a kind of mid-sized studio to
Mhm.
do very frequent releases of main games of their franchises of their franchise, and they have to rush them to the point where they can't exercise all of the ideas that they had into those games, as well as to have the game be released in the highest quality possible.
Mhm.
That's just really unfortunate.
Mhm.
And it's like I honestly can't help feeling a little sorry for Game Freak. Game Freak specifically, not the Pokemon Company. The Pokemon Company is like it's basically it's basically the closest to like any sort of first or second Nintendo franchise they can get to, like,
Mhm.
say a company like EA or Activision.
Mhm.
where it's like, yeah, a lot of the stuff that they're doing is pretty sketchy.
I always
But
wonder why they
which
don't combine, like they don't bring Game Freak into the Pokemon company. Like I thought they were trying to merge at one point.
okay, so because like more than one developer handles Pokemon,
Mhm.
because for example, Bandai Namco is the one that's going to be handling the new Pokemon Snap game.
Oh,
So, and I think they were also the ones behind the Pokken fighting game as well.
oh,
So,
right.
but other companies in the past, and Niantic is the ones behind Pokemon Go.
Hmm.
So yeah, multiple companies have their hands in Pokemon, but I think it's Game Freak that are the ones behind like the main games that the whole franchise is centered around in.
Mhm.
Uh, and Nintendo is more of a second party to where it's like, okay, for consoles, make Pokemon exclusive to our platform. But for stuff like, web browser games, trading card games, mobile phone games, you can do whatever you want with that stuff. Just make sure with consoles, just keep it on ours.
Right.
That's basically the most involvement Nintendo has concerning Pokemon. And that they at least have as much quality control put into them as possible. Which, yeah, overall, Pokemon has kind of had a rough history when it comes to quality control because, the first generation was infamously buggy. Second generation was more polished, but it still had its few quirks. Third and fourth gens had their own quirks, and the initial fourth gen release in Diamond Pearl weren't properly optimized for the DS.
Mhm.
And I think things started getting better with like 5 and 6, and then 7 was good, except it really put a strain on 3DS hardware when like more than one trainer was shown at the same time.
Was that the was the seventh gen the
It was Sun and Moon.
Sun? Yeah, Sun and Moon. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was pretty good. There were just some things that weren't optimized too well, or that were pushing the 3DS to its limit. The new 3DS handled stuff pretty well.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I was gonna say along with that because with I guess, do you think that there was a lot of hype with the DLCs with it, or do you think they kind of lost their interest? I guess Pokemon fans in general once the DLCs came out. Because I heard mixed
Well,
reviews on that.
they were the two games were the highest selling game.
Mhm.
So it's like if you were already invested in the main game, the DLCs were a nice addition, especially since the DLC expansions essentially replaced the third version, which is a long time coming. Personally, I think that should have happened like as early as like Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon. That could have been better served as an expansion rather than a whole game. In fact, I feel like if the Ultra Sun and Moon games were expansions instead of separate games, they probably could have had more time to work on Sword and Shield.
Mm-hmm.
At least in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
But
I guess they didn't. I was gonna say, I guess they didn't have a way to make expansions with the. Well, I guess they did because Fire Emblem had an expansion on the 3DS.
Oh yeah, plenty of games had DLC on the 3DS. It was possible. So they didn't really have any excuse to not have DLC.
I guess going forward, what could companies do to reduce their amount of hype for their game?
I mean, just be real and transparent. Hopefully, the pandemic in particular has kind of taught them that lesson to some extent, and I hope that lesson sticks throughout. Just going forward. But that's really all there is to it. It's like, yeah, you might be up for some disappointment. Maybe you'll have some nerd who spends way too much time in social media, leaving, rage comments and crap. But it's like, at the end of the day, it's always good to deliver it's always good to like promise small but deliver big.
Mhm.
Because if you try to if you promise too big, then it's like you're asking yourself to deliver a lot more than what you may be comfortable in doing.
Mhm.
So,
oh,
nah, you can go.
I was gonna say, if you also, I guess, related to hype overall, if you want to see a very funny, I guess, um kind of like satire on it a little bit. If you watch the Devolver Digital presentation from 2000 and well this past year 2020, it is hilarious because it's kind of making fun of CEOs of companies that are kind of over delivering their games, the hype related to them, and like wanting to um, utilize that hype to kind of push out games and make them seem bigger than they actually are.
Yeah.
It's very funny because it's like the actors that they got to do it are like they're hilarious, but it's also that they're kind of explaining their own games, but through that lens of like hyping them up. I forgot the titles of the games, but there's it was like the same developers that made Fall Guys, which was kind of funny seeing how that game kind of did after the fact.
I think Devolver Digital published Fall Guys, and it was Mediatonic that made the game.
Yep.
Yeah, it's a pretty darn good game too. In fact, I wish I had more time to play it. But
I wish I had the PS4 to play it right now.
yeah, you need PS4, PC, or yeah, PS4, PC, and Xbox. It's like that, but that game really also needs to be on the Switch as well. I think
Wait, it's on the Xbox?
Or it isn't?
I think it's only on PS4 and PC.
PC. Oh. Well, then it also needs to be on the Xbox as well. But yeah. I mean, do you have any?
I would definitely recommend for everyone to watch that because it is very hilarious.
It is. Yes, it is. Is there anything else that you would like to add, Phil?
That's pretty much it that I have for today.
All right, then. I'd say we'll call this little discussion a wrap. Thank you for tuning in. This will, of course, be available to watch at least on YouTube. If you're ever curious, and it'll be on Twitch for like a couple of weeks before it disappears because Twitch be like that. So yeah, when I have these discussion videos, they will be multicast courtesy of StreamYard, live on YouTube via my new name, Your Local Friendly Gamer, and Twitch, YLFG Matt. Once I get like new socials going on, I plan on adding Facebook Gaming to the mix as well. But aside from that, thanks for joining me again, Phil.
Thanks for having me, man.
Yeah, hopefully we'll get to do another one of these soon. In the meantime, all of you have yourselves a wonderful evening and take care.